Hey weirdos, I'm Ash.
And I'm Alaina.
And I am Tobias.
And this is a very special edition of Morbid.
Guys, we've been waiting for it. We told you about it a while ago, so you've been holding onto your butts for a long time waiting for this. We have Tobias Forge from Ghost on the show today. And we are so grateful that he's taking the time to do this. Thank you so much, Tobias.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Of course.
Anytime.
This is very exciting for me. I've been like raving about you guys for weeks, like probably months at this point.
Definitely.
I'm a newer ghoul. I've entered into the space this year. And the way that it happened was kind of funny because I had no idea that I was missing out on so much. I was so mad at myself. I was like, oh my God, I'm so late to this game. But what happened was one night we were recording because we have another show. It's a horror movie podcast and we usually do it late at night. And we were recording it for hours upstairs. And when we came back downstairs, my husband was sitting in the living room in like the dark. And he was like, I have to tell you about something. And I was like, what? And he's like, I just heard about this band Ghost and I can't believe I didn't know who they were, but I just sat and listened to the entire Impera album and you have to listen to it. So for the next like 3 hours, we just sat and listened to it and we were both freaking out about it. It was like this cool little like bonding thing because I haven't really felt this way about music in a while. So I had to tell you that because I appreciate it so much that you guys have like brought that back for us.
Well, that's very nice to hear, especially since I know that the record is like 44 minutes. So you must have heard it several times.
We literally went through every album after that.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, welcome into the to the weird place.
It's a great place. That's where we thrive in the weird place. And we were so upset because we found out that you were in Worcester, Massachusetts, like I think it was like the week before, and we had just missed you, and then you were going to a European tour, so we were like, no.
It was right when you found them.
Yeah, we were like, no.
Well, great news is that we tour now and then, so we're usually back, somewhere in the vicinity again at some point.
Well, that was what came up finally. It was when we saw you were coming to Providence, Rhode Island. We were like, all right, we can do that. We can make it to that one. And we made it to that one. It was an amazing show. I think it was last week.
Yeah, it was last week. I've never seen Alaina happier at a concert, and I've gone to many concerts with her.
Yeah, it was a real moment. And I also have 6-year-old twin daughters. And I know you're a twin dad. I've been told that by many people now.
Correct.
Yes, twin vibes. They also love Ghosts now, and they were very angry that they couldn't come to the show. So they made me film like several videos and show them.
Well, I mean, we're going to be around, so there's plenty of time. If they still like it next time, they're more than welcome to come with you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we saw a bunch of kids in the crowd actually, like with their parents, with those like little headphones so their ears didn't get hurt.
Yeah, it was so cute.
It was so cute to see.
Yeah, there are always a lot of kids in our shows. It's a very, very wide span of not only styles and sort of subcultures and to very normal looking people that just look like they just accidentally stepped into the wrong thing, but also
that might have been Ash, actually.
That was me.
No, but it's spanning like, dare I say 4 generations? Yeah, probably.
Oh, yeah.
Like the eldest in the room is usually, old rock fans of, born in the 40s, 50s, like our parent generation. And then you have, the 60s, the first breed of kids, and then down to the newlyborns. So yeah, it's a very it's sort of a family oriented thing, which sometimes I sort of scratch my head on that one because there's a lot of F words and insinuations on this, that, and the other, and about things going here, there, and everywhere, and stuff. So it's like, well, but okay, if people like it. I mean, I come from a very, very liberal background, so where there was hardly any censorship whatsoever in our home. So I am just glad if that, because I've also realized growing up, and especially as a grown up, I've understood that my upbringing might have been a little bit of an anomaly.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm always a little bit of like, you guys know have you seen the show? Or did your kid just ask you to come here? Because
what happened?
No, we like your band as well. Okay, cool. Yeah,
Sure.
because I don't want to, you don't want to, as much as you want to provoke and all that, or, I spent my first 25 years in life wanting to provoke and piss people off. But as a grown up, you're a little bit more, especially in this day and age when people might react negatively in a way that is very negative to anything that they don't like, or they might find offensive, or not God-fearing, or whatever, or political or anything. You don't want people to have that reaction with their kid on a rock show.
No.
Yeah, that's not what you need. You're just trying to have fun.
Their hay fork out.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
We don't need that. And that's, I think, like, because the way that obviously my girls are 6 years old. So there's been a lot of like, what was he saying there? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like peanut butter. Don't worry about it. Like
up to interpretation.
You just like the music. It's okay.
You're like, go to school.
Yeah, no, I had to go through the whole, because my kids has also sort of picked up on not only me being in a band, but
I wondered that.
Also this maybe this is a later question, but just on the note of how you have to explain something, and a question came my way, and I was like, so my friend is saying like Mariana cross is it's kind of kinky. In what way?
In what way?
You're like, we'll talk about it later.
In what way?
Just sit down and
we have a pretty open conversation about like about things, and I try not to divert too much, and try not to have too many taboos. You might say before a subject like, this is things that you usually don't talk about, but just because we're talking about it, let's plow through it. But it came to that point where it's like, because we're obviously in our family, we speak English as well. My son even is almost more fluent in English than he is in Swedish. I mean, he speaks Swedish pretty well. But sometimes, I have to double check, and that's where it really comes to a point where it's like, you do know what go down means, right?
It's hard to miss that.
Yeah. And then you had to, okay. Yeah. Okay. You know that. All right. Yeah. So in this context, it doesn't mean go down. It means like you're going down in history, or you're going down as in you're falling from grace. But I wrote it in a way that makes it sound like I mean going down on. Oh, okay.
That is a perfect explanation.
And it's like, but you have to, but how are you going to have a conversation like that if you're bound to not talk about sex, or bound to talk about what people do in real life? That does not work.
No,
not at all.
On the other hand, I'm just because we're talking about funny things here. Years ago, when I'm not going to say who asked me, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus here, but it was extremely funny, even though I found it to be cringe at the time.
Oh no!
We were sitting on the subway in Stockholm, and there were a lot of people sitting. Everybody's kind of silent, and then one of my kids asked me, like, "Dad, what does vagina taste like?"
Just on the silent.
Oh yeah, and you just see the woman next to my kid who's just like looking at me like, "What are you going to answer?"
she's like, I'm waiting to see the answer to this.
That's a lot of pressure to answer that question in front of a train full of people.
Oh yeah, that's
amazing.
Yeah, mic drop.
Wow, that's like parenthood right there.
That's a win, though.
Yeah, well, that depends on what I answered.
That's very true.
I'm not gonna go that far. So
you don't have to. Just that was amazing.
You had some questions.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I agree with you that like sugarcoating stuff to kids doesn't really work that well. So we're of the same mind that way. I try to be not scary when I answer things like about like death and all that, because they're 6 now, so those kind of things are coming up.
You go just far enough.
I give you the facts. Otherwise, they're gonna later be like, you lied to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I think you should avoid that to the best of your ability.
Exactly. But I'm gonna take like a hard shift here, because one of the songs that I love off of Impera is Respite on the Spitalfields. It's like one of my favorites. And I know that it's like about the aftermath of Jack the Ripper and, you know, how everyone was kind of living in fear and there was no real conclusion to that case. And we actually just did a 5-part series on Jack the Ripper where I think I had like almost 80 pages of research at the end of it. It was wild.
Alaina did a quick dissertation.
Yeah, just like I could not stop. That case sucked me right in. And I had to ask, because I know that you are at least like mildly interested in that case.
I'm obsessed with it.
Oh,
okay,
I love to hear it.
Perfect.
Love to hear it. That's exactly the answer I was hoping for. So the double event with Liz Stride and Catherine Eddowes. Do you think that was a double event? Do you think Liz was a Ripper victim, or you just think she was just lumped in there?
I am as convinced as you can be without having been there. Which obviously means that you can never know for certain, but I think everything is pointing at that double event being an actual deed of Jack the Ripper. And the reason why that happened was that he for once chose not to do it at 4 a.m. on a normal weekday, and he did it outside his normal pattern as well, because it was very near where his mother lived. So
I didn't even know that.
He probably did it after or in some sort of conjunction with having been to his mother, because apparently because it's I do believe we know everything points to a certain person, because there's a general misconception when it comes to Jack the Ripper as a phenomenon and as a time or as a event, or a series of events, which is kind of mind blowing considering what we do know now about serial killers. Anyone who's like interested in serial killers and we do know a lot now about basically the general background of a person like that. And there's a lot of general reoccurring features among these predominantly male figures in a certain age, of a certain social class and background and just marital status and all that. And somehow those facts have not been applied to the case of Jack the Ripper. There's been this fascination and this fixation of it being someone that was from a different social class than was predominantly in the Whitechapel area. And that defies sort of like everything that we know about how every other serial killer has ever done it. And also bear in mind in Whitechapel at the time, if there would be like an aristocrat just waltzing in there with all clean clothes, that person would like stand out like a shining, like big,
that is very true,
throbbing, glittering thumb. So that is out of the question. Like that wouldn't happen. So it's using the Racer Vacuum, it's a local person.
That does make sense.
He's gonna fall into the criteria of the normal serial killer, between 30 and 40, broken home background, problem with this, that, and the other, asocial, like all of those features that for some reason they've never spoken about that. It's always some weirdo who's like well known and who had a fascination to openly do this weird thing, collect that, or and basically one thing that is mind-blowing about this theory, which is presented in a book and is also presented in a documentary on BBC. If it wasn't BBC, it was one of those English channels. Is that, and this is the mind-blowing bit about the theory, is that if you've seen more than one, and you're interested in, but one documentary or read one book about Jack the Ripper, and if you're somewhat interested and you know that the sequence of events somewhat, and you know the basic characters, and the character that they're pointing at is someone that we all have seen. We all know about that person. And that is the mind-boggling revelation, because all of a sudden you see him right there. And if you know about who it is, you can go back and rewatch everything that you've ever seen and read it. And now knowing that that is the person, you're just like, holy shit. That's it. That's him.
All of a sudden it fit.
Yeah, because he was one of the persons who found one of the bodies. And the reason why it's believed that he found it was because another person came and saw him, and he was smart enough to just stood up and said, "Oh, I found this woman over here."
I know exactly who you're talking about.
And this other person came and just like, "Oh shit. Oh, is she alive?"
And they were like, "Oh no, police."
We don't know. Maybe we should pat her up, he says, the other person that came to person one. And he says, "No, we shouldn't do that." Person number two looks at the body and sees no blood, but the coat is being closed up all the way up to her shin line, basically. And then he says, "We should go and find a police officer." And they both leave. Around the corner, they bump into a police officer. Person number one, who was the first body, who was standing first at the body, he says to person number two, "Hold on a second, I'm going to go talk to the police officer." And he went over and said, "Mr. Police Officer, a colleague of yours was asking for assistance around the corner because he found a body over there." "All right," said the police officer, and ran around the corner and ran towards where the body was lying. And this is the fucking magic here, is that when he sees at the other end of the street, another police officer had already found the body. So when he runs over and sees the police officer right next to the body, and those other two, they have already left, he thinks nothing of it, because he was tricked into believing that that police officer was already there. So the murderer had an incredible luck that he was just going to fint, lure this police officer out of his way. But luckily, his lie turned out to be true. And that's how we escaped.
That is pretty genius.
Because when they came there,
I'm not gonna lie.
Because then obviously when the police officers met over the corpse or over this dead body, it was drenched in blood. So what that tells you is that at the moment when person number two comes up to person number one, there was no blood. That was because the blood was the cut was so fresh.
Yeah.
It just happened. And he always strangled them before he started cutting.
Yep.
Starting from because he was a butcher. He knew perfectly well that if you're going to cut into meat, you need to stop the blood flow. Otherwise, you will have blood all over the place. So he knew perfectly well how to strangle first, and then you start maiming, because the maiming, that was not how he killed them. He did the maiming. That was part of the lust ritual. Yeah, but his name is known, and that's the guy. Must be.
It
Can't
makes
be anyone
sense.
else. And they can connect him to all the murders. His mom lived down there by the double event, and he grew up north. He grew up south of what's it called? Whitechapel Road, like the big long one that sort of crosses like into the whole map of the murders. Yeah. And the double event was the only thing that happened south of that street, and that's where his mother lived, and that's where he grew up.
See, that makes perfect sense. I didn't know that part about the mom living there. And that's after like 80 pages of research.
There's always more to learn.
There's always more in this case.
This has been, because it's a very unsexy version of the story, because he's just a local. Yeah. He's just a local dude. And he works as a carman. And he was handling meat. He was driving out. He had like a big cart with horses. And his work was in the morning, early morning hours, to distribute meat to butchers. So he could also pass very easily in case he was dirty or had any. He was already dressed for that.
Right. That's one of the things we were pointing out, that it had to be somebody that could walk away covered in blood, and nobody would blink an eye. Which that's why we were saying a butcher would make sense. But my only thing with it was the anatomical knowledge of like the human body. That's the only thing that kept me from fully believing it was a butcher. He
automatically, a body, what you have to understand about bodies is how to sever, and you have to have tools. You have and simple things like knowing how to separate things from bone, or bones detaching, and of course he knew that. He worked with that all day.
That is true.
Alaina knows all about that.
Yeah, I'm an autopsy technician, so I think I was like super critical of the butcher theory first, because I was like, where did you know how to find like a woman's ovaries? Where, like, what's
you're like, I spent a lot of time learning that.
But it's true that it's like a very specialized, skilled thing, and there is always the thing that it could have been luck that he could find these things. It would just be hard. That's why I have trouble landing like fully on one that I believe. But that one makes sense. And I know exactly what you're talking about.
First name Charles.
Yep.
And another misconception, in order to fully realize the story about him, if you sort of strike out the word Jack the Ripper as this sort of chapeau-claque wearing aristocrat, which is like the common shadow caricature of him. If you sort of look at him and you disregard the idea of the canonical five, and put in rather in a context where they actually did find bodies before and also after, you also see the trajectory where the canonical five is sort of in the middle, where even within the canonical five, it goes from pretty basic, using, I'm being cynical here, but from a very basic stabbing to absolute
carnage.
Absolute carnage. There are a few before that are mild, and it ends up after the canonical five being body parts scattered, and like a torso that was found floating in the river Thames. So it just paints a picture rather of this person who was a pretty classical serial killer. And I think that is a very interesting story.
It really is. And it really does make sense with like the escalation. And I think you're right that people put it into this like nightmare fairy tale kind of thing instead of looking at it what it was, which is just a straight up serial killer, like a terrible human being and not this like phantom in the night kind of thing.
It's not like a Grimm Brothers story.
Yeah, exactly. You don't believe that it's the Aaron Kosminski who they found the DNA,
Nope.
quote unquote, because I don't either.
Nope.
And I'm really glad that you don't.
Far-fetched.
I'm really glad you don't. Yeah, the mitochondrial DNA
I am
drove
as
me
certain
nuts.
as I can be. Like I am as certain as I can be
I
because
gotta look into him more now.
I've seen enough various stories and representations and documentaries and run-throughs of this whole story, and I've seen enough mass murder, serial killers, and read about them to understand, to see the connection and see the simplicity. It's usually not as complex. You don't
Very
don't
true.
walk over the stream to find water. It's usually not
Exactly.
that hard. And all the other stories are just complicated, and most of them are stories, as I said, that where the accusation of guilt is thrown from one social class to another, and it's usually from the lower up.
Very true.
And I don't think that there's a coincidence that many of them are either royal or Jews or this, that, or the others. People that would, especially back then, people would love to see guilty of something.
Like a
Absolutely.
scapegoat kind of situation.
Oh yeah, there was so much of that in this case. I could go like
Yes.
on and on with like Sir Charles Warren. I could go on and on. We could be here for like 4 hours. I wish. But thank you so much for answering those questions because I really wanted to know your opinion on this. And now I'm going to look further into Charles because we mentioned him and we talked about him, but I didn't go too far into him. And now I'm like, huh.
A little further.
Because I'd like to be convinced, and that sounds pretty convincing. So we decided to put together rapid fire ghost questions, but not Ghost the Band, like paranormal ghosts. Because we figured we wanted to get, a different side of things.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
Sweet.
So number 1, are you afraid of ghosts?
I have always been afraid of the dark.
Same.
And so, yeah, I guess so. I don't seem to, I try to rational. I have this mind game where I think of, if I were a serial killer, if I'd just been dropped one more time, head first on the floor, I could have been one. And if I were, theoretically, I could be.
It's true.
What would the odds be that I would run into some other fucking lunatic here?
That's true.
And so forth. And I like the idea of this friendly sort of ghost that you can sort of be friends with. But regardless how much I try to theoreticize and it never really works that way. It always my imagination always screws with me. But that's why I try to avoid I would never be alone in like a house or something like that. We live in an apartment, so
I couldn't do it. Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't like the dark either. And like I have to sleep with a light on and like sound because I can't handle like silence and quiet and darkness. But I think with ghosts, it's the spontaneity of ghosts that I don't like. Like I don't even know if I'm scared of ghosts. I just don't like that they don't plan or warn me when they come.
They
Like,
don't
I don't
announce their presence.
Yeah, I don't want to be surprised by anything, and like they always surprise you. So, yeah, I'm gonna say no. I'm afraid of ghosts.
I would love for that sort of gentle knock before.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a
hello.
little bit.
A little
You know?
something.
Hello,
Yeah,
I'm
just be a
coming.
little- yeah,
And then you can make a
exactly. Sorry,
decision.
please.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Then it's a yes or no. I answer the door or I don't. I can say no, not right now.
Yeah,
Not
you
in the mood.
have an option in this scenario.
Exactly.
I agree with that. I think I'm really just scared of like the very scary ghosts, like poltergeists that want to mess with
Yeah.
you and can come through your electronics. I'm not really
Yeah.
into that. But in our childhood home, Alaina and I grew up in the same house, and we've mentioned it before in episodes. We had tons of ghosts in that home and so many paranormal experiences. And in a weird way, some of the experiences made me feel protected. Like there was somebody, if I was home alone and I did, like we've said it before, there would be like a perfume waft that would go
Yeah.
by you and you would just feel this overwhelming sense of calm. So those ghosts I'm cool with. But
Yeah.
the menacing ones I don't like.
I would say number 2, are you a Casper, Patrick Swayze, or Beetlejuice guy? If you had to choose.
There's a reason for me to dress myself and behave more like a Beetlejuice guy on stage. Probably a little bit more Swayze, I guess. I don't know, actually.
I love that.
I don't have a fun answer on that one.
No, that was a great
But there's
answer.
a reason that I wear that I'm flipping between personalities.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
What about you?
Beetlejuice.
You're Beetlejuice.
Yeah, all the
no
way.
explanation, just I'm
just
Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice.
Okay, I'm Casper all the way
Yep.
because I like to think of myself as friendly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Perfect.
Well, the thing I'm just going to cut in here and just
No,
say
go
that
ahead.
Sure.
the one thing that I've always had very, very vivid dreams,
Me too.
Ooh.
and still as a grown up, even though I don't understand that I'm dreaming and always, but if I understand that I dream, I still when I was a kid I could fly all the time, but still if as long as I know it's a dream, I can fly in the dream.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool.
And another thing that I've learned in the dream, which is actually quite handy when it comes to scary things, is always to attack. You always attack whatever you see in the dream that is threatening, even though it might sort of go against your intuition. You just have to remind yourself, like, hit first, just fucking, attack. Go
Hit first,
for the
ask
throat
questions
immediately.
later.
Yeah, apologize later.
Yeah, as soon as you see a scary like stairway or something that's dark, just run up, right, run down it, just jump down, and that usually shifts the dream, just like whoop,
That makes
and all of a
sense.
sudden it's under control.
It does.
You take the power.
Because usually when I can realize that it's a dream, I'm going to try that next time because I can lucid dream a lot. Mm-hmm. And usually I'll realize it's a dream and something terrible is about to happen and I get annoyed. Like my first thought is like, ugh. Like I get super annoyed and I just like run the other way.
See, I can switch dreams when I'm dreaming. Like I can go somewhere else and turn it into a different
That's
dream.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Damn. I want to try all this
I'm just
stuff.
like, I don't like that scenario. I'm going to go over here.
You guys are getting stuff done in your dreams. I'm
We're
just like,
dream
"Ugh,
warriors."
this is annoying. I'm going to run the other way. So, what would be your favorite type of ghost? Like a poltergeist, Victorian child, a chic ghost, an angry bride?
Or something we haven't mentioned.
Yeah.
I guess it would be a Victorian child.
I
a
knew
good
you were
one.
going to say that for some reason.
I actually I don't know if we're sort of touching this subject later, but just generally, I am very dismissive of most horror films made last 25 years. But one group or one genre or one production house, if you want to be that sort of specific, that I really did enjoy was basically most of the film that Guillermo del Toro
I
sort of touched.
love him. He's one of my favorites.
Just because he always, and I don't know if he, but I guess that sort of started a little bit with the Japanese films, where at the end, after all these horrible things happened, there was always like a big excuse at the end. No, it was actually this deed made the kid do that. This happened to the kid, so all these murders are okay. And then it's like validated. A beautiful ending. Yeah, they're all validated because actually the person that was most the poorest was this one. So, and so a lot of the things that he has done, Hero and Orfanato and a lot of those, I love those sort of when there's like a conclusion and that you feel like, wow, that was. And it's tragic but beautiful at the same time, and but they break my heart as a parent as well. I can't see them. I can never see them again. I always see them once, and then I never see them again.
I feel that.
But so I'd probably prefer one of those if I'm gonna have something around. It needs to be like someone like that, or like an older woman or something like. But I would love for it to be some kind of I don't like screaming, and I have a problem with people who are like twitchy. I don't like twitchy people at all because I'm a control freak. I like people who are like subdued.
That's Alaina. Yep.
Yeah. So it needs to be one of those. But Victorian, I like that. And if you dress properly as well, that's like that.
There you go.
I like that.
I'm taking it to a full-blown place of chaos because of who I am as a human, and I would want an angry bride kind of haunt. You would. I love a good angry bride.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I'm cool with like yelling and loudness. Bride. Yeah, just let it all out.
Yeah.
And weirdly, growing up, there was like a 3-year stint where I was a dead bride for Halloween 3 years in a row. There's probably some psychology behind that.
I'm sure there is.
So I felt like I had to choose angry bride.
You're manifesting that, I think, in some way. I think, you know what? I would want a Victorian person. I don't know if I'd want a child because I think it would just make me cry. But I think an older Victorian woman.
There you go.
I could get down with.
You have a lot of kids to take care of already.
I do. So I feel like it's, and I would just cry and I don't want to cry. Also, Pan's Labyrinth and Devil's Backbone are like 2 of my favorite movies. Just had to throw that out there. But the next question would be, when you become a ghost, are you going to be a sheet ghost? Are you going to be a quilt ghost? A fancy lace curtain ghost? Checkered tablecloth ghost?
What kind of ghost
are you going to wear? Like, are you going to wear a sheet? A blanket?
When you said sheet ghost, I came to think about the Grudge. Mm-hmm. The ghost that sort of appears in between the sheets.
Yep.
And even though in between the sheets is a good position to be in, but it's a funny. If you're the ghoster, I would assume that it's a very effective way of terrifying people.
I don't think so. There you go.
But I guess I more realistically would be sort of ponderer that would walk around aimlessly and amongst the old the stuff. Kind of like, imagine like a ghost version of Citizen Kane in the end.
Ooh.
Because I'm a collector, so I have a lot. I like to collect a lot of stuff, and I'm sure I sort of end up with roaming around all that stuff.
Just with all your stuff. Oh no, you just made me rethink this now. Because I also collect a lot of stuff, and now I'm like,
very true.
Oh no, I didn't even think of that I'm just going to be roaming around I guess that's fine though. I'll just be roaming around in my stuff. You know what? You made me feel better about it.
It's all stuff that you love. Why would you not want to roam around in it for eternity?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
And other people's
stuff. And if my stuff is lost, then I'm going to be that cheat ghost.
Exactly. Because then you'll be pissed.
Yep. There you go. See, I would want to be like a sheet ghost, but I think I would end up being like a furry blanket ghost because that's just like how I live.
Because you like to be comfy.
I just always am in a furry blanket.
I want to be a fancy lace ghost because I'm not that fancy currently in like real life. So in the afterlife, I want to be a little more fancy.
I think you're pretty fancy. I think that's.
I mean, I'm wearing
correct.
Johnny Cupcake sweatpants right now, so I appreciate that.
You know, it's all relative. It's fine. Next question is Ouija boards. Are you for or against them? Because people have very serious thoughts about them.
I am probably an against person.
Yes, me too.
I find them to be irritably fake.
That is true.
So
Ooh, we're against them for different reasons.
And I split my brain in two, very much when it comes to belief and knowledge and humility in front of the fact that I don't know everything. But as much as I do believe in that there is a great universe that we don't understand, I'm also pragmatical enough to shoot down anyone who says that they understand, because that is bullshit, because you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm all open for paranormal activity, but I also know that you who wrote a bullshit book about it don't know shit. So. And Ouija boards is I think it's pretty a well-established fact. Also, being one that I've tried it, that there's always someone fucking moving that little cup around.
It's very true. Bloody Mary. What version did you grow up hearing about or playing?
I think that Bloody Mary is, when I hear that, I think about a drink, but
one of my favorite drinks.
We had, what was it called? I think that the most commonly similar game was called Svarta Madame.
Ooh.
Which is the Black Madam.
Ooh.
I think that was similar. So I can't really, I don't know exactly what Bloody Mary, the game, is. How do you play that?
It's different for everybody.
It is.
We grew up playing a similar version, but yours varies a bit.
Yeah.
So it usually starts off with you have a mirror in front of you and you're
Usually
in the dark.
bathroom.
Usually we were always supposed to be in the bathroom, and you say her name a certain amount of times in the mirror.
Okay, it's exactly like Svarta Madame.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, cool. Yours just has a way cooler name.
I was going to say it sounds way cooler, but we also had this weird little like modified version that now, especially as an adult, I'm like, wow, that's rude. Because you were supposed to stand there and say the Bloody Mary however many times, and then you were supposed to say, I have your baby.
That's real weird.
Which now as an adult, I'm like, I would come scratch you out of a mirror too if I were her. Like, are you kidding me? And I don't remember what the whole thing behind that was. It was like this witch who got her baby stolen, and you were supposed to be like, I have your baby, and then be upset when she comes through the mirror.
That's wild.
But yeah, I never really did it. I was too scared to do it.
I remember doing Bloody Mary once and being so terrified. I shrieked downstairs through like my whole entire house, and I got in so much trouble.
I love that. Yours definitely sounds way better though, Tobias. I'm not going to lie.
For sure.
Just for the name alone.
Yeah, it's a catchy name.
It is. So the last one I'll ask in these ones so we can get to the listener questions. If you had to have a famous person's ghost haunt your house, who would you choose?
Ooh. Good question. I mean, I'm a sort of a generally a laughing person, and it would help. It would be practical if it was someone who's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But the sad thing that a lot of comedians aren't necessarily very funny when they're private.
That's very true.
But yeah, someone who's cracking jokes all the time, that would be nice. I don't know. Richard Pryor, maybe.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, there you go.
Someone like that.
Or like Robin Williams.
Some of the, I can sort of loosely sort of joke with all the time.
That's a good answer.
And yeah, so it helps. I mean, in our home, I'm very sort of, I just make noises and jokes and I always try to, I don't know how to explain my behavior, but it's very, and just because I'm hanging out with my wife, who's kind of similar, and our kids who are now like, we're all sort of the same size nowadays. And so it's like 4 people at home
that must be
who
so
all
weird.
sort of behave the same in a similar way, where there's sort of trigger words that just unleashes this sort of series of words that sort of echo throughout the apartment.
I'm a little bit like that.
I'm
I
just
was
like,
gonna say.
yeah, it's just swear words and certain, if someone sort of says a certain word, I have to echo that.
Yep.
And obviously now I'm just scratching at the surface of like a whole slew of internal jokes, but anyone who's going to haunt our house needs to be in on that. Otherwise,
They need to
it
hang.
might be weird. Yeah.
Or else they won't fit
And you
in.
need to
love
contribute with your own stuff as well.
Yeah,
So
you gotta
can't
go.
just sit here and feed off of our jokes. You have to contribute.
Yeah, be original, okay?
It's not a free show here. You have to contribute.
Exactly.
I love that.
Who would yours
That's-
be, Alaina?
I would say David Bowie. Just one, so I could look at David Bowie. And 2, his outfits are great. So I feel like they would
share
always
clothes.
and it would always like cheer me up. He can sing to me. He can pretend to be Jareth from the Labyrinth. I would make him do that daily.
He's a multifaceted character.
Yeah, I think it would be great.
That's a good choice.
Kind of hoping it happens, actually. I'm hoping I'm just manifesting it as I'm talking about it.
We can summon him later.
Yeah.
I would say mine would have to be Tom Petty, like for similar reasons to you. He could sing to me.
There
He'd
you
play
go.
guitar. He's also friends with very cool people who would like come hang out with us.
Oh, that's a good point.
When Stevie Nicks crosses over, God forbid, someday, she could come over. We could have a
There you
lot of
go.
fun. It'd be great.
I think it sounds great. I think we all nailed that one, guys. Also, my husband sings 90s R&B ballads all the time, so our house is very similar. So I think we'll end on the listener questions just so we can make sure we get some of those in.
Definitely.
Because people are very excited to hear you answer their questions.
Okay.
So the first one comes from Rachel and Justin, and they want to know, when will we ever see the quote-unquote film project briefly mentioned a couple of years ago, or do a horror film project in general?
Let's just say that any horror film and another film project is not necessarily the same. There are several ideas, and one or several might come to fruition within a few years.
Ooh.
Sweet. That was a
I
great
like that.
answer. All right. Our next question comes from Anita McCormick and also myself, because I'm a cat person. We want to know how many cats you have.
I have no cats, unfortunately.
No cats.
I wish I had. No, I am very, very, very much a cat person. I love cats. But one problem is that my daughter is allergic to them.
Oh.
That's not great. And
That's not great.
Which we can circumvent that by there are certain cats that aren't that doesn't have that dandruff situation. But on the other hand, it's also like a very it will prohibit a little bit of our lifestyle.
I could see that.
Because we don't live in a house, so they can't be out. So you have to have them inside. And currently, I think we all feel that one day, if we ever live in a penthouse that's big enough to sort of roam around, because you won't have 2 cats, well, you want them to have like a friend, and
Yep.
it needs to be big enough for them to roam around. And so we don't have that yet.
Yes.
Well, I hope you get it someday. And you could get one of those, like a Sphinx cat, the naked cats.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Yeah, no, I'd love that as well. I mean, I like those cats as well. So it's like, I love cats. I had cat when I was little, So I miss. I don't miss him. He was a crazy cat. He yeah, he scratched my face, and unfortunately after that he attacked me, and then unfortunately they put him to rest.
Oh,
And that was
no.
very sad. I didn't want that to happen, but he was a crazy cat. And when, he was
Traumatizing.
attacking everyone. Yeah,
Can't have
not
that.
cool. No, it wasn't traumatizing to me. It was like because I loved the cat, so I was like no 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 no.
You're like, it's fine.
It
Scratch
wasn't.
me again.
He didn't mean it. Yeah, he didn't mean it.
The aftermath is traumatizing.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
We have I have three very chill cats. So I've recently become a cat person.
And I am a dog person, but I won't let that stand in the way of our friendship, Tobias. We'll get through it together. I've been okay with Ash's cats, but
My cats love you.
they do. They do. We get along. So maybe, but I'm a dog person. But the next question is from Audrey. And she says, outside of Elizabeth Bowtry and Jack the Ripper, is there any ghost song or will there be any future ghost song with inspiration from true crime?
Possibly. I can't promise anything, but why not? I have many records to write, so
I'd love to hear
sooner
that.
or later I'll through some.
When the inspiration comes.
Yeah. No, you have to promise right now. We need it in writing.
Okay.
He'll send that later, guys.
Cool, thanks.
Our next question comes from Shay Q, and they say, Tobias, I'm wondering if in light of the religious and mythology related subjects, you have a similar experience of choosing to walk away from an organized religion that no longer served you, or if it's more of an outside observation.
Somewhere in between. As I said, I grew up in a very liberal home where religion had no place. More so than from a cultural aspect, more like a pop cultural aspect. It was part of. We were high consumers of TV, radio, films, music. So the concept and art. Because my mother worked with art. So the concept of religion was ever represented in film and art and music. So I already knew for as long as I can remember, I was fascinated by the idea of the history and of course, as any kid, you start asking yourself about God and anything beyond the realm of what you can fathom. But I think that there were a few things that sort of outside my home that really colored my my stance on as to how I felt about religion as a more of an organized social exercise. And one of them was my first teacher that I had grade 1, 2. She was a very mean, like disciplinarian woman. And, this was the 80s and she was probably just about to throw her towel in at that point. I mean, she must have, I think she retired like a year after us or something like that. She was very old for us, obviously being like, if she was 65 in mid 80s, later 80s, she was very old school. And I remember her telling, I don't know if she told the whole group, but I remember, or at least I was in the room when she told me, or she looked at my direction and say that, we're not allowed to hit the children anymore. But if I could, I would.
Oh my God.
Stuff like that.
She's just very upfront.
So she, oh yeah. And she did not like me at all. She was very upset with, just because I wasn't, I was never very good at school, and I've always been kind of anti-authority.
Same.
But and I was foul-mouthed. I was swearing a lot. And so, I mean, I have no problem looking back and seeing like I probably provoked her a lot. But my memory of her, because from what I recall, and if any one of my old school friends or ever hear this and they say like, no, that's not true. Maybe it wasn't, but my memory of it was that she was implementing an abnormal amount of biblical theory and biblical class on us. And she was also very righteous, and she combined her religious belief with meanness and very condescending, and she was very angry all the time. I remember I did a double knot on my shoes, so I went in and asked if she could help me untie it, and she was just like, "Oh, give me that!"
Oh my god!
And just like, and you just get a yelling for anything you do. And
it's ridiculous. You're like, I'm 8.
And my relationship with her was combined with several others that was religious people who were actually kind of mean. So I got the impression that this is just bullshit. This is bullshit. I can separate. And I think I, for as long as I can remember, I can separate the history lesson of the Bible. Yeah, there was this dude born 2,000 years ago that had ideas, and he started this little cult, and then he got trashed for it. That's not hard to understand.
Nope.
And because that doesn't really fit into our story, so we had to sort of curate it a little. And, so a lot of those thought processes started for me very early, especially as soon as when I sort of became a Satanist. If it was not on the day, but it was pretty much exactly coinciding with my adolescence. So that became a very powerful tool to oppose anything that I found stupid or weak or hypocritical. And I still think it is. I look at many of the most vocal religious people in your media climate or whatever, or around you, that are claiming righteous thoughts about what to do with female bodies or whatever it is. And it's all stems from evil, ignorance, and just pure low life dumb assness.
Yep. Wow. Do you want to come on the show every week?
I know.
And yeah, I still find it as provoking and as much, as when I was a child. And it makes me just want to scream and rock.
Scream and rock.
Play loud,
like
obnoxious rock music.
It seems to be like a lot of people's experience when they like take themselves away from religion is they see people who are not practicing what they preach. Like it's the exact opposite, because it's supposed to be like preaching kindness and goodness, and that's all great, and it's like awesome,
and you can do that outside,
like love thy neighbor and all that, and it's like, all right, cool, that sounds great. But then you meet like someone like your teacher and you're like, how though? Like how does this correlate?
We're not practicing what you preach. Just help me untie my shoe, please.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, if you want to be the more sober person in the room and just look at it, you understand that there are other aspects usually rooted in the reason why people utilize religion as a life code that more than often sort of subject others to grief and torment.
Exactly.
And but again, like how much of a slack do you want to give people? You can't just look at anyone and just like, oh man, if he or she was just a little bit happier,
yep.
he or she will understand that is a bad judiciary move.
So
You know,
true.
it doesn't, you can't, some people are just fucking dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And a
Can
lot
say that
of
again.
people should be put out of our misery. But all I can do is rock. That's
That's
what I
all we
do. And
ask.
that's my lot in life. And I am very lucky with my lot. So
We're happy you found your lot in life.
I know. Thank you for answering that.
The next one that I'm going to ask you is from Saima. And she says, growing up in Sweden, what was the scariest urban legend or story you were told as a child? And does horror as a genre differ in Scandinavia versus the United States? So it's like a two-parter.
I think a lot of folklore and is similar, just because you know, Sweden is a very, what would be the word? Rural. It's very naturesque. A lot of forest, creeks, valleys, you know, rivers. So, and we have a lot of, since it's an old country as well, you have to remember that, you know, it's been a somewhat functioning country for almost 1,000 years. So it had a lot of old tradition of trolls and a lot of various forest beings and different weird characters that live near the stream and underneath the waterfall, and it's a lot of folklore that is based on nature and you know, the nocturnal side of the forest. And I found many of them to be equally fascinating as terrifying. I mean, especially if you look from a historic perspective, which I always like that. I mean, I'm very interested in history, but also trying to understand the psyche of people historically. And you have to realize that people not very long ago, as much as, you know, there's plenty of simpletonry nowadays. There was obviously you know, the standard mindset hundreds of years ago were pretty uninformed, and it must have been a terrifying environment to live in. Not only, you know, just 100 years ago, you could kill people left, right, and center. If you had more than one brain cell, you could get away with killing people so easy, just because the forensics was not up to snuff.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So on the one hand, you had the real life that was just filled with bandits, murderers, and rapists that would come and rape your wife and kill your children and rob you, and but on the other hand, you know, as soon as you sort of veered away from society, you had the very, very threatening forest outside your door as well, with trolls and vets and all kinds of things haunting you.
Fairies are scary.
Yeah, and let alone the wrath of God, you know.
Oh yeah, and that.
There's always that.
There's always that.
Yes. So yeah, horrible times. But, you know,
good times.
They all lived through it for us to sit here.
That's true.
You know, I did what most people, but a lot of people have done in the last couple of years, and I did the whole ancestry thing, and, you know, built my family tree, and I just found it to be, very I got very touched when you see all these people who's lived their lives and, you know, tried to survive and through hundreds of years, throughout wars and all kinds of famine and all these things, just to survive and sort of try to get a little bit ahead and for the next generation to do a little bit better. And, you know, that sort of put me in a mindset that it's you're just one part of this tree that will continue growing, hopefully. And I mean, just because my branch, if for some reason, if that would end, the branch, it has so many branches. That's also like a mind blowing thing when you're doing that. I have relatives like all over the world, like in America, tons, so many. Just because there was a great migration wave in Sweden in the late or mid to late 1800s, and that it puts you you sort of see a little bit of a you understand that you're just one part, and your job is to just push it forward and do the best you can do in order to just make it a little bit better for the future. But you're out eventually.
That's a good way
but
of
you're doing it
at
for all these people, because otherwise they would have done this for nothing. Not for nothing.
Yeah.
Because they obviously did it for their future. But yeah, I think that is important to understand, that you're just a part of a flow.
Yeah.
I love
think that's
that.
the perfect way of looking at that.
It's like, I forget where I heard it, but it's like your legacy is like planting a garden that you don't get to see.
Yeah.
You just leave it for everybody else.
Mm-hmm. And to circle back on supernatural things, where it originated was that all of these people lived through not only wars and horrors, but also all these fucking threats of this, that, or the other, of the wolf coming eating your kid, and the bears and the boars and all the weird things that we have in our forest that actually does exist.
Right.
Yeah. I love that.
I know.
Swedish forests, man.
I think they must be so beautiful.
I think we might have done an episode where we mentioned one. I don't remember now. I'll have to look at it. There's some scary ones.
There are, for sure. But I'm happy that you touched on history, because it actually leads into the next question. Scarlet A says, can you please ask Saint Tobias, patron saint of rats, if he was able to have dinner with any historical figure, who would that be?
Just because we mentioned him a moment ago, I would probably, and now I'm going to out his name here, but I would love to have a dinner with Charles Lexman.
There you go.
That would be very interesting.
It would.
You get a lot of answers to a lot of questions.
Yeah, and you know what? I would like you to have dinner with him, because now I want to know.
And you can report back.
Yeah, I'm high on personally just assuming that he will confess, but
what has he got to lose at this point?
Exactly.
Just do it. That's all you have to say to him. Like, what do you have to lose?
Yeah, you're dead.
Yeah, you're good. I won't tell anyone. Just whisper it.
But if I could curate this meal, it would probably be in the 20s, because he died in 1921.
Ooh.
So you'd want to catch him, not maybe 1921, but when he's definitely think he's in the clear, right. in 1910s or something like that. Maybe in April 1912, and you can, directly after the sinking of the Titanic, and you sort of talk about that first, and then you just lure him into. Yeah.
I like that. You gain his trust first.
Yeah, you get a little segue in there.
You commiserate over the sadness of the Titanic.
Right.
And you're like, speaking of sadness, did
you murder a bunch of people?
It's pretty sad. I like that. I think it would work. So the next question we have is from Bianca. And Bianca says, I hope you're doing well and staying safe. As the spooky season is upon us, Halloween traditions and rituals help keep the spirit alive. This is beautifully written. My go-to is watching horror movies all month long with the lights dimmed or by candlelight, then dressing up scary and passing out candy. Do you have any particular way you celebrate for the month, or any horror movies that are your go-to?
Not really.
You just hang. It's spooky season all year.
That's how we are.
No, yeah. You'd think. Yeah, that's funny. I mean, I've heard myself saying, like, when someone was inviting us to you go to a masquerade, I'm like, I don't know, I'm not good. Well... I don't have a lot of costumes. Like, I don't. And I don't dress up normally. No, and I'm a very, very big fan of Halloween. I'm a very big fan of. I mean, as the season and well, not holiday. What do you call it? We in Sweden we have a school break just around that time.
Oh, cool.
Lucky.
Um, and obviously in Sweden also being a sort of a taiga forest country, and on the northern hemisphere, also for us Halloween is obviously very, very autumnal. So it's just a very, very cozy. Yes. Cozy is the word. It's a very cozy part of the year, point of time in the year, and but the thing is that you have to remember is that in Sweden we did not celebrate Halloween before. That was a commercial. It was a commercial amendment that I would say, maybe with the odd exception of some theme party at some point and before that, but it was basically people, I think, our age that started doing it in the late 90s, mid to late 90s.
That's wild.
More as a tribute to, what we've seen on the films. And back then you couldn't buy Halloween stuff that way. We have a similar day there. It's also in honors of the dead, the same as the Dias de los Muertos, and it's also on the 2nd of November or 1st November or something like that.
Is it All Hallows Eve?
Yeah, but the whole practice of Halloween with pumpkins and all that stuff, you had to do everything. In the 90s, you had to sort of create all the things, and so it became and nowadays, there's this whole package. You can just go buy everything, and it's almost as a commercial holiday as it is here in America.
Oh wow!
Which I like. I like it, so I'm all for it. But therefore, there's no real rooted tradition. We don't have a culinary tradition. There's not a tradition rooted in our upbringing or anything. So I think that we're still feeling it out.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But we have friends who one thing that we do is we have a friend of the family is long story short, he owns amusement parks, and we usually on Halloween we go together with him and his family. We go down to one of the amusement parks, which is a zoo out in the forest.
Ooh.
And then, a park full with animals and stuff. And they usually decorate it Halloween, and you go through the park and so that's a nice sort of autumnal tradition. And then we, stay at the hotel there, which is right in the wilderness. And so that's nice.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
I was going to say that's spooky. I like that.
Kind of similar to what we have with the, what is it called?
The Jack-o'-lantern Spectacular.
Thank you.
We have something similar, not as cool as that because it's not in the wilderness, but it's at a zoo. And so it's at night. So all the animals are around and they have thousands of carved pumpkins that they light up.
And they'll hang them and everything.
And it's just this huge labyrinth that you go through. So we do that every year too. So that's pretty similar. But it's if you don't have it when you grow up, like you were saying, I didn't think of that if it's not ingrained in you from a very young age, it would be we don't have traditions that we do because we didn't start with it. I didn't even think of that because I'm just Halloween from birth.
No, but on the other hand, the trick or treat thing is very similar to what we do on Easter.
Oh,
so
that's interesting.
Yeah. So when you're a kid around Easter, on Easter, that was when you went around asking for candy.
Oh.
That makes a little more sense, actually.
Yeah, we just have a bunny come and give it to us.
Yeah, which he breaks into your home and just leaves you candy.
Yeah, we just have a home invasion.
Well, that bunny is not real. So
No,
but the rest is.
No, I'm just saying shattered the glass.
We've just sort of shuffled around the traditions, I guess.
That makes sense.
But I'm a big fan of Halloween. I like that. Good commercial holiday. Very cozy.
I agree. Yeah. Pumpkins for life.
Pumpkins forever. Well, our next question comes from Francis, and they said, if I could ask Mr. Forge a question, it would simply be, what makes you happy?
There are many things that make me happy, and I like when one of the best feelings I can ever have is be with my family, and there's no have tos. When I'm done working, there's not a whole lot of stuff that I need to do. That is one of the weird things about, getting what you wish for, because you spend so much time not being a professional at what you do, wishing to be a professional, thinking somehow that if I just get to not have a job, I can just do my passion, my hobby, and then you sort of reach some sort of new platform, some sort of status quo when all of your problems is sort of out the window. And where I've noticed that, like, my working situation, because I do have a job, even though I don't feel necessarily like I have a job in the classic sense, I work all the time, and I have a very hard time not working. My brain is constantly just spinning. And there are moments when I can stop doing that. And that is a very nice feeling. But that's usually when you let yourself, okay, so tonight I'm with my family. Tonight I'm with my family and my friends. I'm going to have a GT and I'm just going to let it flow.
I feel that so hard.
And knowing that you're not going to go up in the morning, you have nothing. There's nothing but a day in front of the TV tomorrow with no have tos. Oh, that's a nice
that is
thing.
Happiness.
You just spoke like into our souls. I think that's exactly what makes us happy as well.
Yeah, that was like perfect.
Should we do one more question?
Yeah, why don't we do, what are your favorite guilty pleasure songs? And that's from Marissa.
I don't feel too ashamed of music that I like, but it's of course I have a different. I'm on one hand I'm a nerdy collector, a aficionado about certain things, and certain bands, certain styles, where I collect everything I see, know everything about it, or try to get to know everything about a certain band and anybody who's been in that band and any demo that they've ever made, and what different versions, what differentiates the first version of the demo with the second, because they changed the address, all that stuff. Whereas I also like a lot of songs by artists that I don't give a rat's ass about who they are or what their background is. It's just a great song. I've always been very, very song driven ever since, for as long as I can remember. As I said, the TV was on, the radio was on, we listened to music. My brother had one set of records that he listened to, my mom and myself, and it was just a constant flow of music. So therefore I've never really shunned away. And then obviously there can be a band or something that you'd like, I don't necessarily like the totality of their thing, but this song is really good because of this little transition over here or that's pretty brilliant. I have a faiblesse, a weakness for early 90s Euro disco.
Wow.
I love that.
I didn't see that coming.
I love how specific that is.
Yeah, it's it's someone who really is in the know might argue that it started before, but I think that's generally between 1991 to 1994, and that's the cutoff date, basically. There are a few songs that came in after that, around 96, 97, that's okay. But not only was it a very creative, they created, there was a lot of new technology that they used, a lot of new synths and a lot of that I just like the sound of. But there was a lot of great songwriting in that. That was powerful songs. And I think it also coincided with, that was the age I was when, I was adolescent, and before you'd seen the loop, and before you'd really started exploring what it's like being a teenager and all the heartache that brings with it. Being a 12-year-old walking through the city and at night on my way home with a friend, having been to the equivalent of Blockbusters, and we had a bunch of films, and then you went by the nightclub. We all sort of lived in the city, so it was the nightlife was very near around us. And you saw like cute 18-year-old girls, and you heard the music from inside, and it just sounded appealing when you heard what is love and stuff like that. So I associate that with nightlife, the dangerous, very enticing nightlife that you could only watch from an outside point of view when you hadn't really explored anything of it for real. So therefore I am very fascinated with Eurodisco between 1991 and 1994.
That's incredible.
There you go.
So you like a feeling associated with a song? Like you like when you can bring some nostalgia with it?
I don't know if I like it, but that I like the feeling of it, but I have to control it as well, because I can get stuck in feelings, and then I need to break it by listen to something else and just sort of take my head out of that, because it opens. I have as much as I'm a very imaginative. What's the word? How do you say that? I have a lot of imagination.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
It also plays tricks on me. So I have I don't want to say a good memory, because I don't necessarily remember details, and I maybe not, especially because you hadn't reached a certain maturity level, so you couldn't really handle what you saw. So my recollection might not be correct of what I saw or what happened of something, but I have a very, very vast memory bank of almost my entire life. I can remember things pretty clearly from two probably.
Wow.
And onwards.
That's wild.
And ever since I asked my mother once, like, what year is it? From that date, I also know pretty much which year something happened, or which month.
Oh, wow.
Or it's like an inner calendar, which and by listening to music, or by listening to something, or watching a film or something like that, I can sort of open up gateways into the memory bank quite
cool.
easily. And that can be a little overwhelming sometimes, because you're just like, oh shit, you just transform yourself into this place. And it's not only negative, it's just like, it's sometimes hard to know what to do with that information and those feelings, because you remember so clearly, like, oh, this song. Oh yeah, I remember I was at his house and that film had just come out, and we started talking about that. And then on the evening he went over there, and oh yeah, it was an election just the day before. And
wow.
And you just
you'd be a great witness.
I don't know. As I said, I'm also a very I have a wild imagination, so it sort of spins. I wouldn't trust myself.
Yeah, it can fill in the blanks sometimes.
No. Yeah, this is why I work in the entertainment business.
As you should.
Yeah.
We have kept you so long. We I want to thank you so much for doing this. We can't tell you how much we appreciate it, how much our listeners are going to appreciate it. And this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Thank you very much for having me. It was very nice talking to you too.
You are welcome back anytime. And again, this was great. Thank you so much. And we hope to see you.
Thank you.
Again soon.
Definitely.
Likewise.
All
Take
right.
care of yourselves.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Whoa.
So that was the coolest thing that's ever happened.
I don't even know what to say. That was just like so much fun.
He was so lovely.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Obviously, you guys listened to the episode. You saw how lovely he was.
He answered all of the questions that we like sent in. That's crazy.
Yeah, we were trying to be good with time and we went way over and he just hung out and chatted. That was like
glorious.
We could have done that for another 6 hours. I sure would have, but I wasn't going to make anybody else. That was amazing. We want to thank Tobias so much again.
And his whole team.
His entire team for making this happen because they've all been so amazing. Guys, go listen to Ghosts, go to the shows. I'm telling you, when I say that the shows, the rituals are worth it.
Oh, yeah.
So worth it. I'm telling you, go. So it sounds like they have like stuff cooking too.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. So stay tuned for whatever they have next.